Hello, and welcome to the Mount Gretna School of Arts Summer Lecture Series, hosted here in the Pennsylvania Chautauqua's Hall of Philosophy. I'm Jay Noble, the Executive Director of Mount Gretna School of Art, which is a summer intensive program for college through graduate level students. It's a 7-week kind of pressure cooker school where we really run them hard to exhaustion. Practically all day, every day, and at this point in the summer, now entering their last week, their endurance levels are up and their concentration skills are up, and they're all secretly making their best work ahead of final crits on Friday. And I can't wait to see it. I want to thank Stinson Strout for his support of our lecture series this summer and Purpose One. I want to thank everyone who made it out tonight and on all the internet people. So the 4 pillars artist residency, of which Amy Erickson and Liam Corcoran are our current artists in residence. I thought someday our students will be sort of done with college and grad school, and they'll be out there hustling through their early to mid-career and maybe want to come back, and what could we do for them? And I thought that, well, maybe they could come back here and we could give them four weeks or so to work and meet some fellow painters, maybe even somebody from a different year, reintroduce them to our audience and give them a public lecture. And we do have a pretty good successful track record of getting some sort of pop-up show for the 4 artists within a year after their residency, so that they have some kind of help them build some career traction. And it's also open to artists who maybe have seen Mount Gretna School of Art and its activities from afar and want to be a part of it too, but were never a student. So tonight, Liam Corcoran is our alumni artist in residence. Amy Erickson is our non-alumni artist in residence. They're each going to talk for about 20-ish minutes about their work. And while they're talking, jot down any questions you might have, either for them both at the end or either one of them individually. And then that Q&A at the end is always really special in this situation with 2 artists bouncing around with the similar ideas. It's been great having them both here. And they've really stepped up to help out with the summer program. Amy's been taking charge of the drawing class for 2 weeks with our students. And from what I can tell, it went great. And Liam has been taking charge of the Wednesday night open figure drawing classes, which many of the people in this community have attended alongside our students. Now that you kind of know what this is about, maybe I'd like to introduce Liam Corcoran, who's going to be our first speaker. Let me do the share screen thing. So Liam, who is an alumni here in 2015 and 2019. So it's really cool to have him back now. He's a perfect example of somebody who did the core section, came back, did the seminar section. Now he's back again doing the routine. And I hope all of our students here can maybe factor that into a possibility for themselves. But Liam Corcoran is a painter and printmaker born in Charlottesville, Virginia, currently living in Richmond, Virginia. He pursued undergraduate studies at the College of William and Mary in 2013 to 2017 and Boston University for graduate school 2019 to 21. His artworks convey textured, moody spaces using a variety of layered paints and varnishes. They often read as abstract, yet give the impression of landscape, drawing from the artist's environment, such as rolling mountains of Appalachia, overgrown fields at the side of the road, or the swampland and runoff of the Chesapeake and its rivers. In this work, one sees dense color harmonies found through successive coats of paint built up over long periods of time. Liam's work has been featured in such venues as Second Street Gallery in Charlottesville, Virginia, and the Harrington Gallery in Lynchburg. He's part of a show coming up at the Sultry Gallery in Richmond, Virginia. And I would like everyone to give Liam a round of applause.
Hello, my name is Liam Corcoran. I'm an artist from Richmond, Virginia. So this is an example of the work that I made in 2024 which Jay gave a excerpt from artist statement. So I wanted to start with this piece. These are all small works. This one is about maybe 3 or 4 inches square. And so I just wanted to lead into the talk with this piece in mind. It's kind of a sample of this series. But I wanted to really begin the lecture with a little bit of my influence, an artist that influenced me, or I draw inspiration from, Jean Dubuffet. This is a painting by Jean Dubuffet. This is not my painting, but I see certain relationships with this kind of textured, abstract space. And I wanted to begin with a little story of when I went to Amsterdam in my early 20s and I went to the Stedelijk Museum. I was going for the Mondrians, which live there. But what sticks with me these years later are the paintings by Jean Dubuffet. Maybe there's a connection here for me in these two European abstract artists, Mondrian on one hand with his clear, simple, ratioed divisions of the picture plane, and Dubuffet with his tactile, psychotic, visually overwhelming textured surfaces. These paintings by Dubuffet that I saw in Amsterdam remain strong in my mind and have since grown in my memory. I have tried many times to find photographs of the ones that I saw in the Stedelijk Museum that day, but I can't find them. What I think I saw in the museum were not the various figures that you generally think of with Dubuffet or these kinds of high horizon line abstract paintings, but rather an array of surfaces transformed through Dubuffet's process of experimentation. To be honest, I'm not sure that the paintings I saw even exist. They may be fantasies altered in my memory. But the idea of a painting that has the surface texture of a Dubuffet coupled with the formal investigations of Mondrian has stuck with me, and I think forms some of the basis for the work I made in 2024. So this is also a work by Jean Dubuffet. I like how he divides the space into shapes using that similar geological architecture. And I also play with permanent markers and highlighters on thin sheets of paper plastic drop cloths with a kind of curvilinear, shapy, sort of abstract thing. Okay, so this is a painting by me from 2018. Again, it's a very small painting. It's probably 3 inches square. So in 2024, I began experimenting with different paints, layering them to create surfaces inspired in part by Dubuffet's paintings. This last series of paintings I made, I started in oil, then I left them in a box for about 6 years, and last year brought them out and painted over them with wall paint, and then with watercolor paint. So this is the original painting. And this is the transformed painting from 2024. Same painting. So I also try to incorporate imagined figures into my paintings. These works take on personal narratives, responding to or symbolic of events in my life. Perhaps I think of this one as a recreation of the biblical moment in which the stone was rolled away and the shepherd appears to Mary Magdalene. Out of order, but this is Luna Moth. This painting is maybe could be an illustration of the moment in Philip Pullman's book, The Amber Spyglass, in which the main character Lyra and her comrade Will find themselves experiencing the end of the world. But the people and narratives that I paint don't always have a single interpretation. So I also think of the character in this painting as maybe a time traveler. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a small red dot in her hand on the right that I think of as like an amulet that's the source of her traveling abilities. I just like to play around with these different ideas and interpretations. Here's another creature who could be the Mothman from folk legend, but it could also be a character from a imaginary world that I created with a friend of mine in elementary school. He might be the antagonist in this story. I've always been fascinated by moths, and it's so rare to see the larger varieties, giant silk moths, like the Luna moth or Polyphemus. Creature may also be a time traveler. He has the red medallion hanging from his outstretched hand. Just a couple other paintings. This could be like an Annunciation painting with Gabriel on the left with his moth wings. Thinking about a William Blake poem with this one. So I enjoy the poems of William Blake, and thought I'd include a section here with a poem by Blake. Has anyone heard of the poem "The Tiger"? Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Well, he has a counterpart poem called "The Lamb," and it goes like this: Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? So it also has a kind of personal resonance to me because we sang a rendition of this William Blake poem in a singing group when I was in college by John Tavener. And the rendition used a lot of strange dissonant chords, which I just love. So this is a larger, medium-sized painting. All of these are maybe 8 inches. This one's maybe 12 inches by 8 inches, 10 inches. It's tough because like I had a guitar teacher when I was young, and he said, if you write a song, don't tell them what it means. Like, don't tell them what you think it's about. So I've kind of broken that rule a whole lot already. So I don't know. I had something about Gauguin and Fra Angelico, but this is okay. So this is newer work. What I wanted to do with these is kind of do the same thing, repeat myself in a way with the textured space and the high horizon line, abstract landscape thing. So I got all these panels and I wanted to machine gun them, and it kind of worked out, it kind of didn't work out, and I kind of ended up feeling like hitting a wall. But some of them work out, and when they do work out, I like that moment because the painting works, but it's because I use watercolor over wall paint. Generally, the watercolor bleeds a lot and pools, and so I don't know what the painting is going to look like until it's dry. So it's kind of fun going into the studio some days after I've worked on painting and seeing, these work, these ones didn't. They don't always work that way, but like this one was probably more deliberate painting like this. I had no idea what it was going to look like. And then, maybe it's kind of this wall of trees, sky. But that's all before I came to this residency and decided to go paint outside again. Had the opportunity to throw some paint around and paint some Adirondack chairs. And it was a lot of fun to get back out there. I did this painting while I was here at Mount Gretna. Sort of started out with this idea that I'd do one session paintings. So this one and this one are one and done kind of paintings. And I was just thinking about thick, heavy paint and really chunking the paint on there. But that kind of changed. I talked to Stanley Lewis, and he suggested I look to some old masters and copy, do a transcription of a painting. So I did this copy of a Courbet painting, which helped me a lot because I was painting on paper and I did not want to put the thick, heavy paint on the thin paper because, I have to drive home and roll it up and if I'm going to, keep it. So I thinned down the paint and really liked the result of that. So I kind of continued in that vein. And these are larger paintings. This is probably 5 feet or so wide. And this is a bit larger. This is maybe 8 feet. Again, I'm thinking of a kind of fantastical world or other world that's beyond our comprehension, like the fantasy worlds that me and my friend made in elementary school. And again, using this thin down paint with a basic rudimentary drawing, which is so different than I've been working in the past. Feels a bit like paint by numbers or something, but I found there was a lot of freedom in that for me, to just kind of be very straightforward about my color decisions, and focus on section by section, putting the paint down and letting it be a one and done kind of. Once I fill it all in, it's done and not reworking it at all. And so then I took that idea to a smaller scale. This is the same scene, but on a 12 by 8 panel. That's where I'm at now. I was thinking about that same kind of thin down paint, and then this is the most recent painting, and I'm paint's a little bit thicker, but again, I'm thinking about just the similar kind of paint application and piece by piece building of the space. So in a lot of ways, this is very different than how I maybe was taught how to paint, but this is something different. I feel like I've changed a lot in the maybe 2.5 weeks I've been here, and I'm really excited about where this is going and excited to maybe spend a little bit less money on oil paint as well. And that's my time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce Amy Erickson. Amy is a painter and educator currently based in Providence, Rhode Island. She holds a BFA from Kansas City Art Institute and is pursuing an MFA in painting at Rhode Island School of Design, where she is a RISD Fellow and recipient of the Nicolette Osnit Scholarship. Her recent exhibitions include Figurativas 2025 at the European Museum of Modern Art in Barcelona, Assemble 23 at Tregoni Gallery in Truro, United Kingdom, and a solo show at Figure Ground Gallery in Seattle in July of 2025. Her work is featured in the Art Love Salon, underwritten by the Conru Art Foundation. Amy has taught observational drawing and painting through a range of independent platforms, including Townsend Atelier in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Warrior Art Camp in Pasadena, California, Modern Color Atelier in Seattle, Washington, and upcoming workshops in 2025 include sessions at the Manifest Drawing Center in Cincinnati and Allah Fine Arts Center in Raleigh, North Carolina. In addition to Four Pillars Artist Residency, she has been awarded residency fellowships at both the Vermont Studio Center and the Vashon Artist Residency. Her work has been featured in Booms Tomorrow, Talent Volume 4, and Literary and Arts Journal Sixth Finch. So everybody welcome Amy Erickson.
Thank you for having me at Mount Gretna. It's been amazing. It's meant a lot to me to be here. So my talk is divided up into two sections, two different ways I think about what I'm doing. So Louise Bourgeois exercised her early trauma through compulsive, repetitive making. So her decisions, her stitches aren't decorative, they're charged with catharsis. I bring a similar paradigm to the practice of academic life drawing, which I attend as often as I can, as they have sessions available in my town. The solo figure for me is a vessel to transform and perform layers of profound anxiety and depression. This really talented painter I got to go to school with showed me that you can use a graffiti tag as an armature to build non-objective images that host a complex and kind of unnameable emotional experience. When I knew him, he was always drawing and always capturing the world in a very interior way. And I wanted to be like that. And I had no idea how you could just be so confident with non-objective language. And I always wished that I had a graffiti tag or something, or some kind of cool idea that I could just keep coming home to. But what I do have is a persistent, genuine joy while taking in what I see, filtering the hand-eye coordination of observational drawing. I don't care about realism. I don't really care about any ism really, but I can lose myself in this process. Hours go by and I can just be invisible and I'm happy. So over time, drawing like this has taught me that abstraction and observation are two sides of the same coin. And talking to Ken and Stan over this summer have both confirmed and expanded my understanding of this relationship. Having been classically trained as a violinist as a kid, I'm conditioned to think of my artist's life in a certain way. So devotion, precision, repetition, to me lead to forms opening up, not closing them down. For example, just because you have skill at an art form doesn't mean you can't use opera to innovate a force of underworld justice, like Diamant de Galaz. To me, paint is like a highly absorbent sponge of the artist's life force. So every decision is charged with your presence, emotion, memories, ideas, and personal residue. The philosopher Merleau-Ponty writes, "The visible can fill itself with the invisible." And I think that this article, I in Mind, is a great article for painters, recommended to me by the painter Stephanie Pierce. Articulates a lot of ideas about why observational painting is not superficial. Also, I think that all paintings are a little bit haunted. They're like powerful residues of the artist's material, emotional fusions, like alchemy. And I don't think you necessarily need a better idea than that. Another great book that I learned about in school is The Poetics of Space. And in it, Gaston Bachelard writes, "The house," which in my mind is also like a still life, even more than the landscape, is a psychic state Even when reproduced as it appears from the outside, it speaks intimacy. So I watched Stanley Lewis while I was here copy a Bruegel print in his studio while he was here. This is the print, the one on the right. And to my eye, so he copied this in his studio the whole time he was here while he was working on another painting. And to my eye, this print looks like nothing. Like it looks like a bunch of old-timey looking trees that I would never give a second look. And his painting, which is not here, but I've included a similar looking painting to his copy, was really interesting to me. Like it's very easy for me to access the weirdness of the space and one day he explained how the impossible and dynamic spaces in this Bruegel print, like how they're working to him, and how because his struggle to try to translate this knowledge and understand this knowledge from this Bruegel print into his own painting. So without this painting, without his copy of this paint, I would never have been able to access the knowledge and space in the print, which was kind of a revelation to me. If he'd never made this copy and had never explained it to me, it's like one less opportunity to understand all of the ancient painting knowledge that's zipped up in this print, which probably has even more ancient painting knowledge zipped up in it from Bruegel's influences. So I was thinking, when I try to copy things from nature, what I see from nature, I'm actually trying to do something similar to Stanley. Let's translate the magic of what I'm seeing in the world to something that someone else can access. I'm not a copy machine, and no one is, and you'd have to work very hard to remove your phenomenological idiosyncrasies from what you're doing, even if you trace the whole thing from a photo. I'm listening to myself listen, and that is teaching me something. Like seeing is weird, seeing is confusing, and what I see is so beautiful to me. I don't try to alter what I see too much in order to capture an ineffable quality that I'm seeing. And I love the idea also that my expression could be hiding in plain sight. I've often gotten the reaction from various contemporary culture folks that I respect deeply, actually, and instructors and peers along the way, that they think I'm some kind of vain or naive conservative that believes in like make art great again or like objective reality because I make art that looks realistic or skilled, or that perceptual painting isn't really thoughtful unless it loudly challenges traditional notions of perception. V. Vale, the great late 20th century archivist of fringe culture, who I got to meet while he was tabling outside of City Lights in San Francisco, left a comment on one of my posts on Instagram saying, "It looks just like a photograph," which, coming from him, a devout champion of surrealism and situationism, I think was meant to be a lightly cheeky diss, to which I replied, "No, it doesn't. Look closer." Don't know if you got it. But I think this comment sheds light on one of the main reasons people have that kind of reaction to figurative art and realistic art, realistic observational painting. People don't know how to see anymore. They don't know how to actually slow down and see stuff. And I don't bring this up to be combative, especially in a room full of people who have traveled to come study observational landscape painting. But to name how a consistent bias against figuration in my schooling, from my peers, from contemporary discourse in some areas, has shaped my standpoint, and to acknowledge how easily that bias can silence or belittle people who are trying to carefully see and say something real and maybe have a quiet point of view. So I think surrealism, abstraction, virtual reality, and a lot of avant-garde forms are not more creative or imaginative than older forms of painting, but they do a more obvious job of communicating the existence of the imaginal realms and social justice, and that is really important. And I'm not anti. I think it's super important to keep innovating forms that communicate these and other truths to an ever-dissociated human psyche. And also, not to harsh on V. Vale, go read his books. They're really important to me. the research books. So imagination, rage against the machine, the interconnection between all things living and dead, waking hypnagogic states is my lived experience too. I just don't always make those things super loud in my images unless it feels right for me. You can, in fact, dream and paint accurate proportions at the same time. We're all on the same side. I really like to slow down and listen and be quiet. I can just relax into this process I know, and the poetry happens as a byproduct of being fully present. I can disappear when I paint and become like a fly on the wall, and it's such a relief. So what my task is now, as I've realized after working on my own for a while, is that I want and need to understand the deeper mechanics of geometry and space, like the entire lineage of human pictorial life, beyond just a very connected act of looking. I want to focus on the non-objective side of how things look to me. And I've been doing it intuitively this whole time, but now I want to make it more conscious. So here I learned I have a lot to read and a lot of mid-century abstractions to copy. Aside from the visual, I do take from everywhere to put these longer paintings together. I don't want to explain it all, though. I want the painting to feel full of layers without declaring exactly what they are. I don't want to give you an easily digestible slogan to serialize. Aside from shapes, I like using color to express the many shades of internal sensation, like Maria Lasnik's body consciousness idea. For me, feeling and color are best friends. Aside from color and perception, I do have some ideas, actually. I'm interested in expressing sensuality, but one that is autonomous, internal, and unaffected by the male gaze. I love that Swedish movie Border. It's the bottom lady, bottom person. The main character, Tina, is a quiet and powerful troll lady. And I wish there were more characters like her. She's like not trying to please you or provoke you. I also like the idea of blending genres. I like things that feel collaged, like there's an infinity of layers embedded in a very static subject. I like narratives that are full of contradiction, but also feel harmonious. The detail. Some paintings are just about friendship and watching anime. And yet, there's all that phenomenological stuff I was talking about earlier. Giorgione had a good idea called the moodscape. It's a painting where atmosphere, landscape, and ambiguity merge to create a poetic, emotional world that resists clear narrative and invites feeling instead of explanation. So detail of that. This is the last painting I'll show. This painting is about my dad dying, but it's also a Renaissance map. But it's also about sharp grass in Oklahoma. It's also about time travel and tornadoes. And it's also about hours of sitting in direct sun and trying to paint every line in the stump because you're sad and you have too much free time. But it's also about color relationships making you happy again. But it's also about the drone metal band Earth. But it's also about the planet Earth. But it's also about living in a storied co-op house full of aging punks. So detail. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And now for the Q&A.
I have a question for Liam. Something I remember Liam did last week was that.
Yeah, well, can't get away from either of those really. But ambiguity is, as I said, I think it's probably better from my point of view to let the narrative or read of the painting be, ambiguous in the sense that it's, I'm not providing it for you, and that you're bringing something to it. And yeah, they're materially heavy, and involved with that. Although I don't know specifically what maybe Neil was talking about with materiality. Other than, I mean, we're using oil paint. It's mud, so I don't know.
I have another question. This one's for me. I'm also classically trained as a violinist, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about the process of integrating those two modes of expression, what that looks like. I mean, I think about it so much, and there is a very intimate relationship between music and fine art that I've never really been able to like manifest properly in my opinion. So I was just curious if you have any views.
Oh, I have a great question. I don't know if I have any information beyond what I've experienced. I mean, for me, it taught me how to be disciplined, taught me how to be devoted to something. And then to see what I'm contributing to is larger than myself. Like, it's not just my vision. It's like I'm contributing my little voice to a bigger vision. And also I do appreciate that I've had to memorize like all the concertos and stuff and like the patterns. Not everybody has like those kind of musical ideas in their base, So I don't know how that has functioned in my painting actually, but I don't know. Things are connected.
Hello, I have a question for Liam. So having lived myself in Richmond for several years, I see in your paintings the James River. I didn't know if that was like something that just was intentional or that's observed. Like, for example, in the first painting you shared, with the high horizon line, it was all red and it reminded me of how the sun looks coming through the water. It's like usually choppy rapids and
Well, I don't know about intentional, but definitely something you notice after all is said and done, and you draw connections and try to say this relates to that or that relates to this. And grew up in Virginia, so all of that landscape is relevant, I think. And the Chesapeake Bay and the Appalachian Mountains and James River, at least for me, I think that's definitely leaves an impression. But I don't know that it's necessarily something that it would work if I tried to put it in there.
well, I guess following up on trying to put it in there, the emotions that you have, are you trying to create narratives that are portraying something that you feel within yourself when you're creating narrative compositions? Is it like yourself? Is it something more symbolic that it's like?
Yeah, I think it generally has to do with me, or like trying to deal with or sometimes things that happen in life, or conflagrations of events and ideas and people and places and things. And sometimes it's like that book, The Golden Compass, it leaves an impression, and then you in the moment of painting, you're like, or maybe it happens afterwards, you like put it on that. Again, maybe it's ambiguous, maybe it's hopefully more ambiguous.
I have another question. So you have figures that are of another world. there are some things that are like obviously fantastical, like putting wings on a person or something. But do you ever think about other things like healing energy, like floating around? Do you think about it like when healing an image of like an aura?
Yeah, I think maybe think about like reference, where the reference is coming from. If you have a referenceless, if you have another world and it's not like sci-fi BS, like it's something else, it's something different than that. Like, what if it was something that had nothing to do with this world at all? And so I think about that as an idea, but then you try to paint it and you're like, well, what, there's no people there. Then you go for, there's no colors there. There's no lines, there's no shapes, there's no any of that stuff. So you can't really make a referenceless painting. So you have to use things from where do you get your ideas? And it's all this world. It's none of that world actually. But I still want to do it. So I don't know.
Hi, when you were both in your talks, I have a question for Amy. You were talking about how, you have layers of a painting, like how it's about all these different things and it comes together into this one object, this one item, and it's hard, and not getting overwhelmed by everything you're trying to say. And so I was wondering, you talked like at the very beginning, you talked about catharsis. Are you not overwhelmed because of the catharsis that you get?
Wow, that's a really thoughtful question. Thank you. When I start a painting, usually I don't, like maybe I'll have all these ideas, but I've learned from experience that if you try to choke your painting with ideas from the beginning, it's like, it doesn't work for me. So I start with something really simple, like a motif, like something I see. But you just start with one thing and then like keep going with the process that you know, and then things kind of come in and you just kind of like get used to flowing with it,
That for Amy. You said my expression could be hiding insight. I was wondering if you plan this just elaborate on that a little bit.
I guess like subliminal messaging. I'm just kidding, not really that serious. I don't think I have that kind of power. But I mean, I like that you can show, I like when the image is almost like reality, but something's a little different. Like it's very uncanny to me. And like I'm very fascinated with that in other people's paintings. And to me, the artistic statement is much more interesting and clearer. And it's not trying to be like overly dogmatic about what it is. Because I've tried to do that too, and it was really cringe. I don't know if that answers your question.
We have an internet question.
It's a question for Amy. He said, I'm amazed that you brought about philosophies, theories that really engage with the act of making figurative art, approaching painting through direct body-mind experience rather than symbolic or literature. I wonder, can you talk more about your relationship with theories, as if they're a sort of way for you to find confident legitimacy, or if they have principles that you can actually put into the creation of work of a certain method?
Well, for me, I think when I was younger, like in undergrad, I was reading a lot more all the time. And so I was more excited to like start with theory, then go to a painting. I've been working on my own for a while. I think it's more just validating. Like I try to, like I feel I have a very strong, like intuitive, like idea about what I want to do. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, is this smart enough? Like what could be, is there anything to back this up? And like sometimes there is, other times there is. And it's also like whenever I've always had a really, really hard time talking about my work. Like when you paint a picture of a realistic vase, like what do you say about that? But there is stuff to say about it, and like so I have to dig for theories that kind of like back up what I what I think about it. You know, because you do think about your work, even if you're very intuitive, you know.
Thank you both. Good job. That was great. And thank you for applying and coming.